In the silence of the tomb, nothing was truly still. Beneath layers of stone and sand, hidden beside kings and commoners alike, stood rows of silent figures, waiting, not for centuries, but for eternity. These were not decorations. They were not offerings. They were servants of the dead. They were the Ushabti. What is an Ushabti? The Ushabti, also known as shabti or shawabti, was a funerary figurine placed within ancient Egyptian tombs. Carved in the form of a mummified human, they hold tools of labor, hoes, baskets, and picks. They were crafted from faience, wood, stone, and for the elite, even precious materials. But their true nature was not material. It was symbolic. It was magical. They were created to do one thing, to work, so the dead would not have to. Historical development. The story of the Ushabti begins in Egypt's Middle Kingdom. At first, they were rare, a single figure, perhaps two, placed carefully in a tomb. But something changed. With the rise of funerary texts like the Book of the Dead, the afterlife became more complex, more detailed, more demanding. The dead were no longer passive spirits. They were expected to labor, to plow fields, to irrigate land, to sustain eternity itself. And so the Ushabti multiplied. By the New Kingdom, tombs contained entire workforces, 365 figures, one for each day of the year, and overseers to command them. Even kings like Tutankhamun were buried with armies of Ushabti, because even a king feared labor in the afterlife. The afterlife and its demands. To the ancient Egyptians, the afterlife was not an abstract paradise. It was real, a perfected Egypt, known as the Field of Wreaths. Here the soul would live again, eat, drink, and work. Yes, work. And this raised a question. What if the dead refused? What if they were called to labor? The answer was the Ushabti. Their name may derive from the word meaning to answer. The spell of animation. The Ushabti did not move on its own. It needed words. It needed magic. From chapter 6 of the Book of the Dead comes the spell that gave it life. O Shabti, if the deceased is called upon to do any work that is done in the realm of the dead, here I am, you shall say. With this command, the figurine became a substitute, a servant, a responder, a voice in place of the dead. This reflects a profound Egyptian truth. Words were not symbols. They were forces. The god Thoth himself was believed to create reality through speech and writing. And the Ushabti was that power made physical. Symbolism and philosophy. The Ushabti reveals more than a ritual. It reveals a mindset. In life, the elite commanded labor. In death, they expected the same. But beneath this lies something deeper. A fear, not of death, but of obligation beyond death. And a solution, preparation, magic, control. Through objects like the Ushabti, the ancient Egyptians believed they could shape their fate, even in eternity. Small, silent, motionless, yet filled with purpose. The Ushabti was more than a figure, it was a promise that when the call came, when eternity demanded its due, something would answer.